There's breaking news just coming in. Multiple rockets fired in Lviv, not far from Poland's border, even as U.S. President Joe Biden is in Warsaw in Poland. Multiple air raids, sirens across Lviv before and during the rocket strike at an industrial facility. Fuel depot has been hit in the Russian strike, according to Ukrainian media. That's the latest coming in. As you already know, U.S. President is in Poland right now in Warsaw. And despite that, there have been multiple rockets that have been fired in Lviv, not far at all from Poland's border, even as U.S. President is in Poland. Multiple air raid sirens across Lviv before and during the rocket strike have taken place at an industrial facility. Visuals on your screens at the moment. The fuel depot has been hit in Russian strike, according to Ukrainian media. If you have Gaurav Sawant with us, let's go straight to Gaurav. Is Gaurav Sawant with us? All right, Gaurav Sawant will be joining us in just about a bit for this big breaking story on 31st day of invasion. But Gaurav is in Poland. He'll be able to shed some light on all that is going on. Multiple rockets have been fired on 31st day of invasion in Lviv in Ukraine. And remember, Lviv is not too far away from Polish border. And U.S. President Joe Biden, as we speak, is in Warsaw in Poland, as you already know. And despite that, there have been multiple rockets that have been fired in Lviv, not far from the Polish border, and multiple air raid sirens across Lviv before and during the rocket strike at an industrial facility have been reported. These are reports coming in from Ukrainian media at the moment. There is a fuel depot that has been hit in strike, according to Ukrainian media. So the day 31 of the invasion, Russia does not back down. We are bringing you the latest as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned. Latest developments. Stay tuned. First on India Today, all these breaking stories trickling in. 5 have been injured from what we're picking up as multiple rockets have struck Lviv. The fuel depot was set on fire as well. And in fact, just to give you a background in terms of what has happened, Russia has claimed that the first phase of its military operation in Ukraine was mostly complete, and that would now completely focus on liberating eastern Ukraine's Donbas region. U.S. President Joe Biden, on the other hand, is in southeastern Poland. He ended up meeting with U.S. troops and aid workers, assisting refugees as well. And despite the U.S. President's presence, there have been multiple rockets fired at Lviv. The fuel depot set on fire. Latest information coming in, 5 people have been injured in the Russian strikes on Lviv. We also have a statement from the mayor who says that Lviv has been attacked, but more strikes may be incoming. In fact, we'll get to you more details through Gaurav Sawant in just moments from now. Getting the latest from Lviv. There is those visuals on your screens showing you how the attack has taken place kilometers away from Poland. Biden, as you already know, is in Poland right now. Biden, in fact, called on free world to stand against Putin in the speech in Poland as well. Despite Biden's presence, that is U.S. President Joe Biden's presence in Poland, in Lviv, this has taken place. 5 have already been injured in Russian strikes in Lviv. Multiple rockets have been fired in Lviv. Fuel depot set on fire. Lviv has been attacked. More strikes perhaps may be incoming, according to the mayor. This is being reported first by India Today. Let's get you some more details in terms of what is going on and just a background on day 31 of invasion, all that is happening. Russia claiming that the first phase of military operation in Ukraine was mostly complete and that it would focus now on completely liberating eastern Ukraine's Donbas region. U.S. President Joe Biden is in southeastern Poland. He met with the US troops. He also met up with aid workers who are assisting refugees as well. And despite his presence right there, Russia has attacked Lviv. Gaurav Sawant joins us live from Poland at the moment. Gaurav, explain to our viewers geographically how this news is so important and put it into context, because you've got US President Joe Biden at the moment in Poland, and just kilometers away from the Polish border, these attacks have taken place. If you could just put this geographically into perspective for our viewers.
Chaiti, there have been multiple rocket strikes that have taken place in Lviv, and just before US President Joe Biden's address here in Warsaw, Poland. Now, Poland and Ukraine share a border. About 2.5 million people have fled from Ukraine and come to Poland because of how close the two countries are. Now, the bigger aspect is that Lviv is very close to the Polish border. The fact that these rocket strikes have taken place hours before the address of the US president in Warsaw appears to be an indication that the Russians are sending out. And the target was a fuel depot where fuel for the war effort, as the Russians would argue, was stored. Fuel comes from Poland, goes into Lviv. From Lviv goes to multiple other cities across Ukraine. What we also know is that as of now, there are major restrictions on supply of fuel for civilians in Ukraine. There is supply. The first access to fuel is with the army, then with the militia, and then what remains goes to civilians. So petrol is being rationed in Ukraine as part of the war effort. And in midst of that, a fuel dump has been targeted just before the US president's address here in Warsaw, an indication that Russia is sending out a message that its war efforts in Ukraine will continue. This is almost like cocking a snook at whatever the US president may say.
Absolutely. This is absolutely terrifying what is happening in Ukraine right now, day 31, and there are relentless attacks that are taking place in Ukraine. Gaurav, what does the second phase of the military operation by Russia really look like?
Well, Russia is expected to consolidate in the days ahead. What the reports that we are getting from Kyiv seem to indicate that there are trenches being dug around Kyiv, and this would indicate that this is like a siege around Kyiv. Now, if the Russians are digging in trenches and not moving in with their tanks inside, they know that Kyiv is very well fortified. And, in the past 1 month, we've been reporting extensively about the situation on ground. So one thing is very clear, that on ground, Ukraine army, especially around Kyiv, is very strong. They're also expecting more military hardware. And there is an expectation that the US president, when he met the defense minister of Ukraine and the foreign minister of Ukraine, there was a conversation about military hardware that Ukraine requires. That's one part of the story. The second part of the story is Russia is likely to consolidate towards the south and the east, the Donbass region, which is indicative of reports that come from Moscow that they may have either relooked or reassessed the situation on ground. They want to consolidate the eastern portion first before they move in. North, they have consolidated till Chernobyl and almost to the outskirts of Kyiv, but Ukraine government claimed that they had succeeded in pushing back the Russians to some extent. So now it remains to be seen, how much do the Russians move forward and the pace of their operations? Will it be limited to more attacks in terms of missile strikes at strategic targets, or will it lead to more operations on ground? There will be more clarity in the days ahead, and of course on the kind of military hardware that NATO countries provide to Ukraine.
Gaurav, continue to be with us right there. Gaurav is getting us all those live updates from Poland at the moment. And our soldier reporter, Rajesh Pawar, on this broadcast with us as well. Rajesh, why don't you walk us through what is taking place in Lviv right now as you are in Ukraine, and also tell us the kind of casualties and the official count at this point of time on the back of these missile strikes?
You're asking me about Lviv?
Yes, Lviv.
Are you asking me about Lviv?
Yes, absolutely. The question is about Lviv because we just broke the story about how multiple rockets have been fired in Lviv, not far from the Polish border.
This strike, I'm keeping a tab, but how much, because I'm right now in Kyiv, I just really can't confirm how many casualties have taken place there. But yes, as I said in the daytime, the Russian strategy will now be to consolidate whatever territories they have conquered so far, the landmass they are occupying. They'll consolidate their defenses there. They will make sure that any counterattack by Ukraine forces fails. And at the same time, they will maintain pressure on Western Ukraine in Lviv and Ivano-Franko by firing missiles and air attacks. That's what I say in the daytime, and that is going to continue. We will see in the coming days. Pressure will be maintained on Lviv and Ivano-Franko by air, missiles and aircraft. And in the east and south, they will consolidate the gains they have made on the territory, on the landmass. Over to you, Chelsea.
Right. Continue to be with us right there, Rajesh. I also want to take this across to Gaurav Sawant. Gaurav, since Lviv is not too far away from Poland, what is the situation in Poland right now and the sentiment at this point of time? Because not too far away from where you are, multiple rockets have been fired. And this despite the US President Joe Biden's presence in Poland.
You know, Chaiti, I was speaking to a number of youngsters on ground here. We are at the old castle, and this is where the US president will be making his address in a short while from now. And some of the youngsters I spoke to had very interesting points to make. A very specific point they were making was they require insurance. What's happening in Ukraine today could well happen to Poland in the years ahead. And they say that the best insurance they're looking at is American boots on ground. Nothing is better insurance than American soldiers working shoulder to shoulder with soldiers from Poland to ensure that Russia does not try what it did in Ukraine with them. Of course, the crucial difference is that Ukraine is not a NATO country and Poland is a NATO member. But will that deter Russia in the years ahead if Russia remains unchecked, or the sanctions that the US thinks are crippling? As Geeta Mohan was reporting from Ground Zero, Russians are able to operate despite those sanctions. So it all depends on the kind of sanctions that are imposed ahead. The foreign minister of Ukraine, when he met the US president along with the defense minister, their indications was that they wanted more sanctions along the UN lines, because that is where the world will get involved. World does not get involved if sanctions are only at the level of either the European Union or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So they want the US to play a bigger in the United Nations. And now it becomes very interesting because Russia is a member of the P5. So can anything be done in the UN? Anything that is done, Russia and China can effectively...
Understand from you, Gaurav, and please pardon my ignorance on this. They want US to play a bigger role as far as the United Nations is concerned. But with Russia having the veto powers, is that even possible?
That's where Russia and China together, and Russia, of course, on its own can also veto anything that the others bring in. And Ukraine is saying that extraordinary powers need to be used to remove, Russia as a P5 member. But this is wishful thinking on the part of Ukraine, the kind of wishful thinking that they're displaying in terms of asking for additional military hardware in terms of fighter jets from Poland and from the United States, and S-300 missile shield, which they very absolutely
the producers to
the
re-establish that connection to Gaurav Sawant. We're losing him in between. The connection to Gaurav Sawant is really bad. Requesting the producers to re-establish that connection with Gaurav Sawant so we can hear him properly and understand what he is saying. I just want to encapsulate to our viewers who have just tuned in, multiple rockets have been fired in Lviv, not far from the Polish border, even as US President is in Warsaw in Poland, and multiple air raid sirens across Lviv before and during the rocket strike at an industrial facility. A fuel depot has been hit in Russian strike, according to Ukrainian media.